In this video, I will be documenting my entry for the Shop Truck Challenge build-off. My build is based on a 1956 Ford F-100, the Auto Clinic body shop truck. It's based on a 79 Hot Wheels hightail hauler with plastic motorcycles in the back. This particular version was missing the motorcycles, so it was a good candidate for the build. So we'll start the build by drilling out the front post. There's only one post on this car, so we'll start with a small pilot hole and then move on to a larger drill bit to remove the mushroom head. After inspecting all the parts and the casting, I decided to go with a metal base rather than a plastic base. So the base that I chose was off of a 1974 Hot Wheels Baja Bruiser, an old Redline. The body on that Redline was pretty much gone, so I just swapped the base. They're very similar. The wheelbase is exactly the same on the two. So by using this metal base, I'll give the truck a little bit more support and I can do some more with it. One of the things I'm going to do is grind off the exhaust that comes out from under the door, as I always thought that was kind of goofy looking to begin with. But I'm going to slam this truck, so I have to cut off the tabs so that I can lower the truck down a little bit more too. Now on the front, we're going to put a piece of styrene across to replace the front bumper, and we're going to put a round piece of styrene in the back to give this truck a tubbed look in the rear. And I had to use some filler and some super glue to smooth everything out. I also smoothed out the running boards on the sides. Axle tubes were also added. Now the interior of this truck was pretty bland and the steering wheel was molded right in, so I'm replacing this with a custom steering wheel and a column and then painting the whole interior. Now the bed of the truck, which I mentioned earlier, is going to be made from wood. It's going to be popsicle sticks and 20 thousandths aluminum strips sandwiched together, so the aluminum will act as a metal rail between the planks of wood. So in order to build this up, we have to sand all the pieces down to rough them up, and then we'll use some epoxy and build our stack up and clamp everything together. Let that get dry overnight, and then the next day I'm going to take it out of the vise and put the whole build up onto my belt sander and smooth everything out. But that's not the end of it. I've got to cut a small thin slab off of this stack up, which will then act as the bed for the back of our truck. After stripping the paint from the casting, I've filed down all the casting lines and smoothed everything out. Probably have to use a little filler to fill in some voids, but then we check the new bed and make sure that it fits in the rear, and then we're good to go. What we're going to do now is we're going to chop the top. So I'm cutting about a 1/16 of an inch out, which equates to about a 4-inch chop on the top of the truck. Now here's where I'm going to fix the fenders and the opening under the doors. I put a piece of aluminum, very thin aluminum from like a pop can, glued that in place, and then went over that with Milliput, epoxy putty, to fill that in. So it'll require a lot of shaping and grinding to get the fenders back into shape. So I'm going to make a cardboard template that I can transfer to the rear fenders so that I get the proper opening for the wheels. So all we got to do is just trace out a pencil line onto the hardened Milliput, and then using my Dremel tool and some grinding bits, I'm going to cut away the interior portion. And then it's going to be a lot of filing and sanding to get these fenders reshaped. Another thing I did is I used some old axles and bent them, and these will become my rear tail lights for the truck. So I had to drill some very small holes into the side of the bed rails and insert the bent axle pieces, and these will act as the tail lights. So right now I'm just checking the fit, and before we prime the truck I will remove the pieces out, and then after everything is finished, completed with paint, I will reinstall these pieces and glue them in place. Here's a couple shots of the final mock-up of the truck before we go to primer and paint. So I've given this a couple coats of white bonding primer, and I'll check for scratches and voids one last time and wet sand before we go to a couple coats of gloss black paint. This will act as a base coat because I'm going to put a Tester's color shift paint over the black. It's called a purple fog, and it goes from purple to green depending on the way the light hits the car. Here's some before and after shots of the truck. Now if you remember, here's what the truck looked like before we started, and then I'll show on the rotating stand the final version. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please click like and subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.